Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking with Gun Saves Lives. Gun Saves Lives. John Bach, and I'm so excited to talk with him about these gun safes that the Bloomington Police Department issued and the buyback. The Bloomington Police Department, there was this gun buyback, and I want to give you guys an update because the Bloomington Police Department had about $50,000 or so to give away. This is from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Development. I don't know what the grant name was, but Illinois Senator, he's a Democrat, Dave Kaler, secured these funds for the department. And this is all state taxpayer money. This is very important that you know that your taxpayer money, about $50,000 worth, went to people who um, didn't want their firearms anymore. So in exchange for their firearms, they got cash. Okay, at this gun buyback in yeah, on Six Points Road there on Sunday. Okay, so I want to kind of give us a recap. And there's a lot of things. I mean, I talked with the Bloomington Police Chief, Jamal Symington, and he said that he knew that the guns were not safes for guns. These were not safes for guns. I don't know why we promoted that as, hey, these are safes for guns, even though explicitly in the manual it says, uh, warning, this product is not intended for all materials. Gun warning, firearms such as weapons or firearms and other weapons, combustible materials, and medication should not be stored in this unit. There's an explicit gun warning here, and it says that these safes shouldn't have been, or that these safes should not have guns in them. Okay. Now he went into detail about how if you put a moisture pack in there, it suffices, and it's, you can put a moisture pack in there, and lots of police officers even have these safes in their homes. But if we're using $60,000, because the safes costed about $60,000, I think they gave out about 312 safes. And, whew, I mean, $60,000. This is, and this is truly what I think this is all about. Dave Kaler, an Illinois senator, and I've done my homework. I've been trying to find other places in the state that do this kind of thing. I think Bloomington is the only one. The Bloomington Police Department is the only one doing it in this way. Now, there are other programs such as Naperville, and there's other programs where they don't give you cash for your guns, but they take your guns and they will destroy them for you if you don't want your gun anymore, or if you want to relinquish your right or your guns over to the police department. You say, "Hey, I don't want this. The person who had this gun in the household died, and I don't feel comfortable with this gun." You can take it to the police department, and what Naperville police will do is just destroy it. They don't give you any kind of cash for it. So I think this is the first of its kind. Now they've got $500,000 overall that they've acquired through Dave Kaler, from this grant, from this funds given by the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Development. So my question is, what's next? I would be really curious what's next for this, and I think that this is Dave Kaler's way of campaigning, on the gun issue, politicizing the gun issue, and now he gets to say, "I'm the legislator behind issuing 312 safes. I'm the legislator behind getting," what was it? I think it was over 200 guns collected. Getting 200 guns collected and 200 guns off the streets in Bloomington. I'm the senator in charge of that. And really, what I think this is, it's Bloomington taxpayer. I mean, it's state taxpayer money going towards Dave Kaler's campaign. It's taxpayer campaigning. It's really what I think it is. But we're going to get into it with John. He's from Gun Saves Lives. And we're going to do that at about 6:30. So you're going to want to stay tuned. I've got so much to talk about. Charlottesville. Yes, Carol Jean-Pierre. She refuses to denounce Semitism. These anti-Semitic protests, really. They're pro-Hamas protests. They're taking place all across America, and Carol Jean-Pierre is refusing to denounce these specific protests that are happening really on college campuses. And what bothers me is that if you look at the numbers, it's very clear that anti-Semitism is a problem in this country. Over half of the incidences reported and investigated by our own FBI are cases of anti-Semitism. When you look at anti-Islamic cases, these incidences, it makes up for about 9% of these hate crimes that the FBI actually investigates. So this is my problem when they don't look at the numbers, and she's refusing to denounce anti-Semitism, but clearly this is the biggest problem um, in America, even according to our own FBI statistics. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, Bud Light, the backlash continues to drag down the company as the revenue plummets for another quarter. And I've got the recent numbers on that. Bud Light not doing so well still. So the boycott is still alive and well, and I'm happy about that. I think that we actually made a difference here. But we're going to talk about Bud Light and the backlash and how this is continuing to just drag the company down. This boycott, really, of Bud Light. Now, Mike Johnson, is he the most based, most conservative speaker that we've had in 140 years? I'm going to get into that in today's show, and I'm very excited about it. Folks, I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can always see me there. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. You can also text in at 309-451-9299 and be a part of the show. So let's get into it. Progressives, they have launched pro-Hamas anti-Jew rallies across America. Jewish college students have been barricaded in libraries. I told you about that this week, and they were told not to eat in kosher dining halls. Jews were told to stay home last weekend in New York City because their government can't guarantee their safety. Yes, they were told to stay home. And Karine Jean-Pierre, she doesn't think that the president of the United States, Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, she doesn't think that he needs to speak out about it because he was vocal about Charlottesville in 2017. We shouldn't be surprised. This is the same White House. Remember, Karine Jean-Pierre speaks for the entire White House since she is the spokesman. Okay. This is the same White House that claimed that they hadn't seen much anti-Semitism, but look out for Islamophobia. I just told you about the FBI statistics. That's not true. Anti-Semitism accounts for about half or over half of the cases that the FBI have investigated as it surrounds hate crimes, as it regards to, in regards to hate crimes, and only about 9% of the hate crimes are committed against people of the Muslim ethnicity or faith. Okay, so here we have it. Carol Jean-Pierre, she told us just this past week that there wasn't that much anti-Semitism, but you should look out for Islamophobia because that's on the rise. This is also the same White House that was quick to call any American throughout America who disagrees with them on a MAGA extremist, on them on policy, a MAGA extremist. So when Ducey asks, does the president think anti-Israel protests in this country are extremists? Even our standards for the White House responses, I mean, even our low standards. I have low standards, our low White House standards. This was pretty shocking to hear Karine Jean-Pierre bring up Charlottesville. So like I said, the White House, I mean, he's quick to call any American who disagrees with the White House on their policy MAGA extremists. He calls you a MAGA extremist if you disagree with any kind of policy that the White House cooks up. Uh, and there's a lot to disagree with here, folks. And he calls you a MAGA extremist. So here we have Peter Ducey, and all he's really doing is asking, hey, does the president think anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists? These people are kind of extreme. I just told you that they locked and barricaded these Jewish students, college students. They had to barricade themselves in the libraries because there were people pounding on the doors outside screaming that they wanted to kill them. Okay, that happened. If that's not extremist, I don't know what is. But here we go. Let's take a listen. JEAN-PIERRE's response.
Anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there's no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be very clear about that. Remember, what the president decided when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017 when he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. And he's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
Does President Biden think the anti-Israel?
Okay, so there's Jean-Pierre, and she brings up Charlottesville. And what really peeves me off about all of this is, she doesn't think that the president of the United States should speak out against the anti-Semitism that's currently going on with these anti-Jewish rallies across America at these colleges, right? She doesn't think that the president has to speak about how those Jewish college students in New York were barricaded in the library and told not to eat in kosher dining halls, okay? She doesn't think that the president has to speak out about that against that now because of what he said about Charlottesville in 2017. Now, I don't think we need a recap recap Charlottesville and what went on there, but I am going to remind everyone that this very fine people thing, where President Donald Trump said that these neo-Nazis were very fine people, that was all a fake news hoax, and actually, I've got a really cool clip here from PragerU. They debunk it for you. Very, very, it's super, uh, it's comprehensive. I mean, this is debunking this fake news hoax, where they said that Donald Trump said that there were both sides very good people at this white supremacist rally in Charlottesville. Okay, the media said that Trump was sympathizing with white supremacists, and we know that's all fake news. Here we go, PragerU debunking that for you on the buzz.
Everybody has heard the media accuse President Trump of creating a moral equivalency between neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and their counter-protesters after remarks he made during a press conference in 2017 following a tragic protest in Charlottesville. But did that really happen? Or is it just a glaring example of media spin? Here's the line that the media has cited for years.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
It certainly sounds bad when that's all you know about the president's remarks. But the press conference transcript tells a completely different story. The media never reports that the president immediately clarified his statement.
And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists.
But here's the real question. Why did he need to clarify at all? President Trump said several times prior to the oft-reported statement that he condemned neo-Nazis, white supremacists, as well as the violent alt-left protesters. When he said that there were good people on both sides, he clearly meant those who were for the removal of the statue and those who were against it, not those like the neo-Nazis and alt-left who came to commit violence. It was.
So there you have it, folks. That was debunking that. It was a bunch of college students, and really, I don't even think that they were actual white nationalists. I think that they were pretending to be white nationalists. And the alt left was there, and they were all committing this violence in Charlottesville. It was over this statue on campus that they wanted to see removed. But what's been happening across America is multiple Charlottesvilles every single day. Okay, in progressive cities, on progressive college campuses, and they're organized by progressive voters. These protests are organized by Democrats. But remember, Joe Biden is super concerned about extremism in America when it's a school board meeting and when some guy is cheering the word, when we're all cheering on some guy named Brandon at a sporting event, or when the presidential motorcade drives by. Okay, he's worried about that kind of extremism. You'd expect he'd denounce extremism amongst our ranks, or amongst his ranks. He only denounces extremism when it's amongst our ranks. Okay, surely a man of integrity like Biden would denounce the real extremism, not the school board meetings or cheering for some guy named Brandon when the presidential motorcade drives by, right? That's not true extremism. Surely he would denounce real extremism being committed by his base. Of course he wouldn't. Ducey thought so. So he gave her another crack at it. He gave Karine Jean-Pierre another crack at this. Let's take a listen to Karine Jean-Pierre's response. He goes, "Surely you're gonna." I think Ducey was just like, "Come on, you. I'm really trying here. I'm trying to get you to denounce anti-Semitism, and going on these college campuses and in these protests." So here we go. So she continues to say we condemn anti-Semitism, but she's not condemning these specific protests. So she's finally. Okay. So she finally got to it. I gave her a second chance. And look, if you're wondering why the right doesn't call out or denounce whoever the media demands that we denounce this week, they want us to denounce the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers. The media would love us for us to denounce those people. This is example number 217. Okay. You might even call this the most extreme example why the right doesn't do that. It's because Karine Jean-Pierre never does that. And Ducey really had to press her to get her to at least address the protest. And she really didn't even condemn the specific things that he pointed out, like these Jewish college students that were barricaded in this library, and the organizations that have been organizing these protests. She didn't condemn them by name. So yeah, I've got to take a quick break, but Bud Light is next. They continue to suffer from the backlash. It's much worse than what I had thought. I thought they would bounce back, but they are not bouncing back at all. It's only getting worse. I've got the recent numbers here on the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. See me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking with a friend of mine, John Bach. He's from Gun Safe Life, and he's the executive director. We're going to be talking about the Bloomington gun buyback. That was an event that happened on Sunday on Six Points Road. So we're going to chat a little bit about that because I believe John was actually there. So he's going to describe the crowd to me. He's going to describe what that buyback actually looked like. So stay tuned. This is the Morning Buzz. Well, this is an interesting photo that was sent to me. Congratulations to Illinois Wesleyan for allowing the anti-Semitic marchers on your campus. Yes, so there's actually a girl in this photograph. It's on campus. I can see the alleged Christian college there because true Christians do not believe. I mean, most Christians are Zionists, okay? And being a Zionist is just that, hey, we have the belief that Israel has the right to defend itself, and we believe that Israel has the right to exist, that it should exist, and that it was promised to the Jewish people by God. God chose Israel, America chooses God. Okay, so there's a girl in this picture, and her sign reads, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Palestine is not a country. Palestine are these weird autonomous zones. They are fringy type people. Palestine, the Hebrew word, Philistine, is a derivative of the term invader. So you could say that Palestine actually was given, this word was actually given to the Palestinian people by the Jewish people, and really what it means invader. So they're not country, like they have no country. These are autonomous zones, and I've explained this multiple times, and people are like, "What?" I'm still so lost because the media will continue to shove down your throat that Hamas and Palestine are different in some way, or Palestinians are different in some way. That's not true. The Palestinians, they broke off, they created these autonomous zones, and they've allowed, or they've even elected Hamas leaders to patrol their autonomous zones. It's much like what happened here in the United States with Chaz in Seattle. So Chaz was an autonomous zone. There were Antifa BLM activists who broke off from the city of Seattle, created their own little city, and they had big scary guns, these people patrolling the city with big scary guns. Right. So that's essentially what's going on with Palestinians and Hamas. That's, I mean, your Palestinian territory. So when she says from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, she's talking about a land offer. She wants a land offer, and from the river to the sea, that's the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, which is pretty much all of Israel right now. She's talking about there eradicating Israel. She's demanding the extinction of all Jews. That's anti-Semitic, and it's a shame that Illinois Wesleyan allowed that on their campus. I do want to shift gears. We were talking about JEAN-PIERRE, how she refused to denounce anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests taking place across America, right here at Illinois Wesleyan, supposed Christian college. She refused to denounce it, these protests. Ducey pressed her on it, and then she brought up Charlottesville back in 2017, and she said that President Joe Biden took a strong stance against Charlottesville and against the neo-Nazis there in 2017. So now he doesn't have to take a stance against the anti-Israel protesters in this country because he took a stance in 2017 about Charlottesville. Charlottesville was a big hoax, by the way, everybody. They sat there and they said, I don't think I need to recap it, but President Donald Trump did not say that he thought the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists that were there were fine people. Okay, that was a fake news hoax. I debunked that here for you. Do want to shift gears. Let's talk about the Bloomington gun buyback because that happened on Sunday. And John Bach, he's the executive director of Gun Safe Live, or Gun Safe Life. And I know I keep wanting to say Gun Saves Life, but Guns Save Life, Save Life. He's here with me. And were you actually at the gun buyback, John?
I was. I got there at 8:30 Sunday morning, and I thought it was going to be bright and early. I thought it was going to be near the front, and really it turned out to be about 14 people or 14 cars into it. And before it started, there was a line of people waiting to get in, almost 2 miles long. There were hundreds of cars there of people that wanted to participate, and it was an exciting morning. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we have the numbers now. I think it's over 200 guns were collected. So your overall thoughts about how Bloomington police ran it? Now I've heard that some people who brought their guns there, their unwanted firearms, they did not receive the cash because they were far enough back in the line where they ran out of funds.
Yes, the police officers themselves were absolutely wonderful. They were very kind, courteous, just downright, just nice as could be. The chief was a little bit aloof, but all the rest of the officers were very, very nice. But it was their first time out of the gate. They'd never done this before, and they had frankly looked and seemed as though they hadn't talked to anybody who had ever done anything like this before. I've participated in probably a dozen or 15 of these across the state in different cities. And while the Bloomington police were paying cash and paying a lot of cash at that, they were getting people through about one car every 10 minutes. So you had hundreds of people in cars outside waiting in line. There were no bathroom facilities. They weren't allowing anybody in the building to use the restroom facilities. And people were out there for hours sitting and waiting, and they were processing people about one car every 10 minutes on average. So, people were waiting 3, 4 hours, 5 hours if they got there before 10 o'clock, and they ran out of money, $50,000. They spent $50,000 buying back second-tier, second-class guns from people who in the community thought, I'll trade my junk for perfectly good cash. Why not?
Yeah. Well, and this was a no questions asked. Now, did you see any kind of video cameras? Were people on video, or was this like just a no questions asked? People didn't even give their names, right?
No, you didn't have to give your name or anything. Of course, you drove it in your car, and I'm sure there was video surveillance inside the building. I mean, it's a city building, for crying out loud. But I didn't see any evidence that they were, making any effort to identify who was bringing the guns in. And, I will say that I had some guns, and I had to articulate for them why they were covered under the Protect Illinois Communities Act gun ban. And at that point, once I identified the features that qualified them under that, they did a quick check of the law, and then they paid the big bucks. I ended up going away with $1,400 of guns from my own collection. Gun Save Life had a gun as well that we got in there. We had more guns, a few cars behind me, but our volunteer with the guns, he waited 4 hours and he had to go. He just couldn't stay. He had an obligation to meet somebody bringing a new refrigerator to his house, and he couldn't wait beyond 4 hours. And the fact that it took 4 hours of him waiting there and he still wasn't able to get in, they just weren't moving very quickly. And the chief said, we've got protocols and all this, and I'm like, yeah, these other cities have got protocols, chiefs, too, and you're making this a lot harder than it has to be. And it took them a long time, in part because they had one guy looking up in the law on his phone, and it's difficult to read a very long law on your phone, and that took a lot of time and chewed up a lot of time and left a lot of people waiting outside with full bladders. And I imagine the people that waited out there for 3 or 4 hours and then were turned away because they ran out of money, I bet there were hundreds of people that were just pretty angry with the Bloomington police at that point.
Yeah, well, it seems like they didn't. And you mentioned the Bloomington police chief being sort of aloof. Expand on that for me.
Very much so. When I got inside, I met the chief and introduced myself, and I told him, I said, if you need somebody to provide some consulting services on how to make this run more smoothly and efficiently, give me a call next year. I've only got about a dozen or 15 of these under my belt. And he's like, well, this is our first time through. And I'm like, well, that's true. I said, but it doesn't need to be this slow. I said, you guys are just incredibly, it shouldn't take 10 minutes per car. And he's like, well, we've got procedures and protocols. And I'm like, yeah, so do other cities like Decatur and Champaign and who else? I've been to Joliet, Peoria, Chicago multiple times. These places have procedures as well, and they don't need 10 minutes a car to get people through. And he's like, well, we're accredited. We're accredited. And I said, yeah, Chicago's accredited too, and so was everybody else. And he was very defensive about it. And I'm like, Chief, you just need somebody to come here that's been to a few of these. You admitted you've never done this before. Get some people who have been here with some experience and give you some pointers on how to make this more smoothly, run more smoothly and efficiently. And I said, first and foremost, you need to put some porta potties outside. And he's like, well, we would let people inside if they had to go to the restroom. And I said, no, your officers have told me twice that I can't come in. And they turned away 2 or 3 ladies that came up and asked them as well. And then the chief turns to one of his officers and said, are we letting people in that need to go to the bathroom? And the guy had this funny look on his face, and he shook his head slowly no. And the chief's like, oh.
Ooh, not a good look. Not a good look. Well, and I'll tell you what else wasn't a good look, and I kind of want to get your opinion about this. And maybe you would be able to shed some light on how bad is it if there is a gun safe. Now, I don't have the actual model on hand right now, but they gave out gun safes. It was $60,000 worth. They gave out like 312 safes, and there was no moisture control built into them. And when you go to the manual of the actual gun or of the actual safe, it says warning, and then it says gun warning. This product is not intended for all materials, such as firearms, other weapons, and combustible materials. And the model said that these were not for, like the manual for the safe actually said that these were not for guns, but it was promoted by the Bloomington Police Department that these safes were gun safes. I mean, they said, hey, come pick up a safe for your gun, as a gun safety initiative. So what's the damage done if you get a gun and if you put it in a safe that explicitly says, hey, do not put this in, or do not put guns into this safe?
Well, you get moisture inside there, and you get corrosion. And ironically, a lot of people didn't realize they paid good money for those safes, a lot of money, when they could have bought them for, I think it was like $35 cheaper from Walmart.com, and Walmart would have delivered them for free. And so I don't know where they bought them or who got the kickback or what, but they could have bought those safes from Walmart or had people go to Walmart and had people pick them up there at the Walmart store for $35 less a safe than they were paying from whoever their distributor was. But yeah, you put guns in a safe that has moisture accumulation issues, and you're going to have corrosion on the guns, and the guns are going to rust. And so in essence, they're giving you a gun safe to put your guns into to rust them out. I mean, that's kind of an underhanded way of trying to tear up people's guns that they put away for safety. And people didn't realize that. And who reads the instruction manual, for crying out loud? I mean, we're talking a bunch of guys with their guns.
Well, and especially when you wouldn't think that if the Bloomington Police Department, if they're marketing it as, I mean, they marketed them as gun safes.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and then the police chief, he told me when I asked him about this, he said, well, you could put a moisture pack in there, and lots of officers, they have these exact safes in their homes, and they throw a moisture pack in there and it's fine. I don't know if the moisture packs were given out, but people had rusty guns and weren't happy. So I don't know if they caught wind of the moisture packs.
Well, don't forget our police chief here has a degree in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's I think his priority. And I would bet dollars to donuts there's not a single one of his police officers that have that safe or would consider putting their duty weapon into a safe like that that's got a propensity for accumulating moisture and causing corrosion in your firearms. And it's not just the surface of the barrel, but there's all kinds of parts in there. There's springs, there's levers, there's all kinds of stuff in there. And you don't put it in a moisture-rich environment if you want to keep it around. It's like storing your guns in a dank basement. They're going to rust quick. And so that's what you get in a safe like this. And no responsible, no smart gun owner is going to put a gun in a safe like that. Nobody stores their guns in a damp basement. Same deal.
That's my issue here, John, is because, this whole program, the funds that were, it's from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. This whole program, they're pushing gun safety. And I don't know about you, but it sounds very unsafe to this point, right? Up to this point where you've got these gun safes that are rusting out guns. I couldn't imagine how unsafe it would be to try to fire a weapon that's rusted out, right?
Yeah, it doesn't lead to reliability and good functioning anyway. Absolutely not. But the whole thing here is the anti-gun angle. This is the state of Illinois. What do you expect? And we're just trying to take our junk and trade it in for perfectly good cash for other things. And we'll use some of that money as Gun Save Life for youth shooting programs to teach young people how to go out and shoot safely and responsibly and all that good stuff. And at the same time, we'll kind of make fun of them a little bit for being so foolish as to give $200 for broken down junk, or in some cases, they were giving $500 for stuff that's second tier stuff. Or in the case of one of the guns I surrendered was a gun I could go out today and buy for $300, and they paid me $500 for it. I'll do that all day long and twice on Sunday. And indeed, on Sunday I did it 4 times. So yeah. It was a good day for the good guys. And the do-gooders, well, they're kind of left holding the bag full of rusty, junky guns.
Now, you've said that they do this all across the state and that you've been to a dozen or so, 15. So my question is, they do these gun so-called buybacks. I don't even really like that, because buyback, and it kind of implies that it was theirs to begin with, right? But it's a gun. They're giving you cash for the guns. Now, have you run into how these funds are acquired? So here in Bloomington, an Illinois senator who's a Democrat, his name's Dave Kaler, he secured the funds for the police department. And I don't know. For me, it kind of feels like this is a PR stunt for maybe Dave Kaler, the Bloomington Police Department, to say, oh, well, we got 200 guns off of the street and we issued 312 safes to people to secure their guns properly. And I don't know, it just feels like a taxpayer campaign. Essentially, I don't know what other people in the state are doing. Have you caught wind of what how these police departments acquire the funds?
Well, your feeling is spot on. The funds are almost exclusively taxpayer monies in one sort or another. And Chicago used to give away $1 million at every one of their buybacks. They'd have 40 locations, and they'd run these 2 or 3 times a year with all these different locations, and they'd buy all these clunky guns. And we at Gun Save Life took up about 65 or 67 guns to one event. We got all these mountain of gift cards, a total of about $6,500. And we put it up on the internet, and Fox News picked up on it. And, the Daily Caller called me, and then the BBC. And next thing you know, Russia Today is calling, and we got international publicity for getting $6,500 for youth shooting programs to send kids to a National Rifle Association shooting camp at Darnell's right here in Bloomington. To learn how to shoot safely and responsibly. And in fact, we used some of the money to buy guns that we gave away to the kids that came to the camp. And that got international publicity. And it was such a black eye to Chicago and its city leaders trying to virtue signal with this gun buyback that they discontinued the program for about 3 years. And it's come back, but they've only have typically one, maybe two locations where they have it at, and they only do it a few times a year. It's a shadow of its former self. But yeah, they had stacks of these $100 prepaid debit cards that they would trade for any guns, no questions asked. And we took up fire damaged guns, rusted guns, just falling apart, held together with electrical tape and duct tape. It was a farce, and we humiliated them. And that was 10 years ago. They've learned a little bit, and they sometimes discriminate against people who don't look like they quote unquote belong in the community from taking their guns. But it is what it is. And, before Bloomington came along, Decatur was given the big money. They were paying $225 for handguns and $100 for long guns. Here comes Bloomington with $200 for anything and up to $500 for everything covered by the gun ban that we've got now. And they just opened themselves up to people doing very well for Christmas. And a lot of people did get some holiday cash, maybe 30, 40 cars worth tops. But the vast majority of people were turned away with full bladders and very angry thoughts, sitting out there for hours without a restroom and then being told, sorry, we're out of money. And, can you imagine 2 miles worth of cars and, only 30 cars got taken care of, or maybe 3 dozen tops, and the rest of the people, sorry, we got to right next time and be earlier next time. So the early bird got the worm and Sunday, but everybody else kind of got upset.
John Bach, Executive Director of Guns Save Life. And I'm so excited to tell our listeners, hey, go check out their website and go check out the recent write-up by, I believe, John Bach. John, you did that write-up on the Bloomington buyback, right?
I did. And thank you very much for what you were doing there at Cities 92.9. You're certainly an up-and-coming star, and it's always a joy to hear you and see you both locally and even breaking into the national news now and then.
Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of crazy that goes on here in Bloomington Normal. It's pretty easy to make national news. But you guys have you have a great day, and thanks for everything you do, John Bach, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Kat.
All right, folks, that's Guns Save Life. And we're going to be back on the other side talking a little bit about Bud Light, the backlash continuing to drag down this company. I've got the recent numbers on that. That's next. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go ahead, smash that like button. And yes, John Bach talking with me this morning about the Bloomington buyback. Well, that was really interesting to hear what a mess really it was. There was 2 miles of cars and only about 36 cars made it through. But I like John Bach's take on this where, there's all this government money. I mean, it's already there. It's already been secured. The funding has already been secured. This grant money, right? It's from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And I'm not happy about that, because what I really think that this is, it's taxpayer campaigning. It's a PR stunt. Dave Kaler wants to be able to say, I'm the legislator behind there were 312 gun safes, so-called gun safes. They weren't gun safes at all, actually, but I'm the legislator behind this. 312 safes were issued out and were given to people. That was $60,000 worth. And then $50,000 worth of money was used to buy back and get over 200 guns off of the street. And that's what this is. It's like taxpayer money campaigning. And I don't like it. I don't think that that's it sets a weird precedent that, we can just take taxpayer money and make ourselves look good through this, gun buyback or whatever. So I like Gun Save Life. Their approach here is, we take our rusted, held together by electrical tape and duct tape guns, and we go and we get our money, and we take that money and we turn it right back around and give it to Darnell's, or we give it to the youth programs where they do gun trainings. So it's really kind of like, this anti-gun buyback. Really, that is what it is. It's political. It's controversial. Hey, come on, you have to think. Why would Dave Kaler work so hard to secure these funds? Does he really care about gun safety? No, he is a radical Democrat who believes that guns shouldn't. I mean, if you were to ask him outright, I mean, he supported the so-called assault weapons ban. He's not for um, guns, these long rifles that have over 15 rounds in them. And he's not for guns. I mean, I'm sure if you were to ask him his positions on guns, he would be very open and honest and tell you that he is probably pretty extreme on guns. Most Democrats are in the state of Illinois. I mean, look at JB Pritzker. If he had his way, he'd probably ban guns, all guns tomorrow. But this is a clear taxpayer funded campaign, PR campaign. It's a public relations stunt. So I don't know. I like John Bach, his take on it. Hey, just if you've got rusted out guns, go take them for cash and use that cash to go buy something new. And it's kind of like a big screw you to the government. Yeah, I'm going to take my money back, and you're going to pay me $500 for my rusted out gun. So I also really enjoyed talking with him about those gun safes. That was a huge thing for me. I saw in the manual the gun safes, the so-called gun safes. They weren't even gun safes. And I mean, the Bloomington police chief, he admitted that. He said that they weren't gun safes. And to be fair, he said that, hey, you have to put in a moisture packet. And if you put in a moisture packet, then those safes are perfectly fine. But I don't know about you, but when there's safes and in the manual it says, "Hey, gun warning, do not store guns," like it explicitly says, "Do not store guns in this unit." Then I begin to question, well, why would our government? I understand if I don't even think it's malice. I really don't. I don't think it's out of malice. I think that it's out of complete negligence or ignorance. They bought these gun safes. The PR guy probably doesn't own a gun or have any knowledge on what kind of safes that you should buy in order to store your guns and what safes are actually safe to store your gun in. And that's what this is all about, gun safety. I would imagine that it's not very safe to have a rusted out gun, right? But yeah, that was kind of explosive for me to see that those safes that were actually bought, the manual of that product, it's very clear. It says, "Hey, do not store guns in this safe." Well, that was a fun interview with John Bach. He's the executive director of Gun Save Life and Save Life. And I'm so excited because coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, we've got so much to get through. Bud Light, the backlash continues to drag down the company as revenue plummets for yet another quarter. This backlash really is hurting that company. And I do want to talk about the Democrats and how they're big mad right now because the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he is, let me check my notes here, not rich. And the Democrats are super upset because Mike Johnson, he's not rich. And you guys are going to love this. Joe Biden signing an executive order because he found something else that's racist: artificial intelligence. Yes, we're going to break down Joe Biden's executive order next here on the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Catch me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Bob, that's pretty funny. Yes. So Dave has had some really egregious legislation come out this year. Legislation, I believe that uh, Dennis Tipsord, a Republican out of I think he's in the 88th, or oh gosh, I forget what district he's out of, but Dennis Tipsord, he actually voted alongside Dave Kaler for legislation. In Bloomington, really, it circumvents a current law on the books where Bloomington District 87 has to ask via referendum, hey, we want to purchase this new building. It's an old State Farm building on Oakland Avenue. It's going to cost him a crap ton of money. you have to bring that to referendum if you want to add a building to the school district. If you want to add a building to the school district, you have to bring that to referendum. That was the law. Now, what Dave Kaler did, he changed the law, he amended that law, and he made it possible to have that go through where there is no referendum needed. Okay, so there was also the McLean County Airport. I believe Dennis Tipsford did not vote for this one, but the McLean County Mayors Association, they spoke out against this at the McLean County Board, actually. Before the McLean County Board, this bill that Dave Kaler has got, where he did the same thing, where he circumvented a state law that says, hey, you have to take this to referendum and you have to ask the people in order to expand this tax base to include all of McLean County for the Bloomington Normal Airport. So the Bloomington Normal Airport, they want more money. They want to expand their tax base to include all of McLean County, not just Bloomington Normal. And you can't do that without going to referendum. So what Dave Kaler did, he made it possible. He circumvented a current law that's on the books, and he made it possible for the Bloomington Normal Airport to expand that tax base without it going to referendum. So those were just a couple of Dave's laws. So Bob, when you say that he is a Pritzker bootlicker, yes, he is pretty radical, Dave Kaler. Those are pretty radical things, authoritarian type things that Dave Kaler has passed or has pushed for. And I mean, most people you talk to, they say, hey, you can at least bring it to referendum and ask the voters what they think about it. But yeah, he's a pretty radical authoritarian, if I had to describe Dave Kaler's politics. And we know that Pritzker is an authoritarian as well. He was signing executive order after executive order after executive order. I think we're out of emergency powers here in the state of Illinois, but for quite some time, it was executive order after executive order, and we were operating under emergency powers bestowed to the governor. Um, and we were doing that for 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic. So when I say Pritzker is an authoritarian, I have a receipts to back that up. When I say Dave Kaler is an authoritarian, I have receipts to back that up. These people are not about legislating. They're about executive orders, and they're about circumventing current laws that protect representation, taxation with representation. Okay, so I would say Dave Kaler is against representation, and he's for taxation without representation. So if you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to come back talking a little bit about Joe Biden. This is a big one where I want to kind of talk about Joe Biden's executive order. Speaking of authoritarian, Joe Biden, he's signing this executive order because he found something else that's racist, artificial intelligence. Yes, because according to the free leader of the free world, artificial intelligence is now racist and discriminatory. So despite what the Biden administration thinks, diversity and equity actually do nothing for tolerance. Okay. DEI is just a signal to activists that their political and ideological goals are being adhered to by this administration. Okay. All it truly does, it's a virtue signal when they say diversity and equity. This is just a signal for the activists that their ideological goals are being met. Now, Sleepy Joe, has signed this landmark executive order that will require AI companies to address algorithmic discrimination, whatever the hell that means. And he wants to ensure AI advances equity. So President Joe Biden has signed this executive order that will require AI companies to address algorithmic discrimination and ensure AI advances equity. So they want to embed principles of CRT and DEI into every aspect of AI, of artificial intelligence. What could possibly go wrong? Because DEI, CRT being embedded in our public indoctrination camps, that's gone really well. In other words, they only want to fix AI discrimination. The only way to fix AI discrimination is to have AI discriminate. And Basically, what we can expect from AI is that it's going to be specifically engineered to discriminate against groups with so-called privilege. If you're male, if you're white, if you're straight, um, if you're healthy, if you aren't 30 pounds overweight, right? These are uh, groups that have so-called privilege. So don't worry, because the new requirements are expected to make sure developers create standards that ensure AI-powered systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy. DEI is the intentional exclusion of certain people based on race. Okay, this is a racist ideology. DEI, diversity, actually, equity, and inclusion. None of it sounds trustworthy. None of it sounds safe to me. Um, According to the Biden administration, the new order establishes standards for AI safety and security and protects Americans' privacies and advances equity and civil rights. And it stands up for consumers and workers and promotes innovation and competition and advances American leadership throughout the world and more. This is what he's claiming. We know that AI is going to discriminate against those with so-called privilege. And I'm sorry, that's excluding certain people. AI, I guess it's racist. And the only way to fix artificial intelligence discrimination and racism is to have AI discriminate. Yes, I guess two wrongs really do make a right sometimes. So basically, what we're going to expect from this AI is that it's going to be specifically engineered against groups with so-called privilege. So because I'm white, it's going to discriminate against me. Because you are possibly a male, female, or a male who's white, little bit of wealth, middle class, AI is going to discriminate against you and discriminate against groups with so-called privilege. Okay, so they're going to make AI as far left as they possibly can make it. This is with Joe Biden's executive order because he found something else that's racist, and I guess that's artificial intelligence. So I'm going to unpack the executive order here on the Morning Buzz coming up in just a little bit. But first, I do want to talk about Bud Light because I haven't talked about Bud Light in a while. Now, the once desperate beer company agreed to give UFC over $100 billion to try to fix its image. Okay, so this is a pretty desperate move. If you're giving somebody $100 billion to try to fix your image, it's a pretty desperate move. There's people who have assumed, I guess, that Bud Light is righting its ship, that they are on the right path to repairing their brand. But now we know why the company was so desperate and gave $100 billion to the UFC to try to fix its image. And I thought we were all done with the bad news for Bud Light, and I didn't think that Bud Light really mattered anymore. But then I saw these numbers, and I'm like, wow, the backlash is continuing to affect this beer company. So Bud Light's parent company, Anheuser-Busch, their top line is being affected by American beer drinkers going somewhere else to drink beer. Okay, so the numbers from July through September, that's the numbers I've got for this year. Now, at the beginning of July, AB, their Anheuser-Busch global CEO, he came out and he said that Bud Light's decline only represented about 1% of the company's global sales value. That tells you all you really need to know about how little of a hoot this guy gives about you and how little of a hoot Anheuser-Busch gives about you, middle America, because they aligned themselves with, of course, TikToker Dylan Mulvaney. Okay, that's what Bud Light did. They aligned themselves um, with TikToker Dylan Mulvaney, but I think that move in itself, giving him that ambassadorship, yes, that did prove to me that they didn't give a hoot about my values, about middle America's values. But the global CEO coming out and saying, we don't really care about America's backlash because it's only like 1% of the company's global sales volumes. That tells me that you really don't give a hoot about middle America and that you really don't like the customers of Bud Light. So a few months later, That was in July, okay? The CEO coming out and saying, we really don't care about the boycott because it's only about 1% of the company's global sales volume. Revenue in the United States for July through September, that period, have tumbled 13.5%. Anheuser-Busch noted that the sales to retailers were down primarily due to the volume decline of Bud Light. Okay, so they're attributing this to the Bud Light backlash. US dollar sales of Bud Light were down 29% in 4 weeks, ending October 21st, compared to that same time period about a year ago. They were down about like 19% for the year to date. So the sales have been down 29% in 4 weeks, ending October 21st. So the month of October, they were down 29%. You look at 2022 in October, they were down only 19%. So this is really bad. This all started when this elitist executive, marketing executive with an $8 million Upper West Side home, okay, who hates the fan base of the product that she was actually marketing to. She hates you. And she went to a San Francisco influencer marketing firm who also hates the fan base, by the way, the original fan base of Bud Light. And she wanted to change who enjoys the product. That's what happened. The marketing executive did not like that blue collar, middle class America that we like our Bud Light. Okay. She hated that she was marketing to that fan base. So she wanted to change it. She wanted to change who enjoys Bud Light. At no point in this journey was there anyone involved who drinks Bud Light or knows anyone who drinks Bud Light. Okay. The marketing executive with this $8 million house, she does not drink Bud Light. She didn't involve anybody who drinks Bud Light or knows anybody who drinks a Bud Light. These are all elitists. And Anheuser-Busch, of course, they said, sure, we're going to get, some sweet ESG cash, and we're going to demand that everybody affirm this woke progressive worldview and political agenda. That's what ESG scores are. They want that ESG cash, Anheuser-Busch. And Bud Light's decline is affecting the company globally. Okay, so in July, the global CEO, he came out and he goes, it's only 1% of our sales. I'm not too worried about it, the backlash. Now we're in July through September. We've got these numbers, and that it is affecting you globally. The company is realizing maybe, just maybe, they need to care about what their customers think. The ones who are still customers, they lost a bunch of people after people realized that they weren't going to drink this cheap beer from a company that hates them. There's a lot of customers who said, you know what, I'm done with Bud Light, and I'm just not drinking it anymore. Now they still might have some customers who are middle America, but they might not drink it as often anymore. But they're trying to fix that with the UFC. Okay, $100 million or something. They're giving the UFC to try to right the ship. Bud Light is desperate to win people back. They have become the official beer of the Buffalo Bills, which is a stupid move for both the Bills and Bud Light. I don't think that that's going to really bring people back. They've tried things like camouflage cans. I think it's just, and now they're giving $100 million to the UFC, so fighters like middleweight champion Sean Strickland can fix Bud Light by chugging a Bud Light in the arena there in the octagon. So I'm curious to see if their attempts work. I doubt it. And they've really lost a lot of sales. I mean, it's tumbled from July to September, like I said, by 13.5%. The sales dropped by 13.5%. Then you look at this time in October, the 4 weeks here, ending on October 21st. That was 29%. And then you look at this time last year, the October sales, it was 19%. So they are really struggling, and it is affecting the company globally. So your boycott is working. So I want to get into Mike Johnson. And I'm sure you have the same reaction I did when he was elected speaker. I haven't really talked about him so much. I've talked about how he made a tweet when George Floyd died back in 2020. I think it was in May of 2020. I think it was. In his tweet, he said that he watched the video and there was no other conclusion that could be made other than George Floyd died from a horrific murder or something like that. He said that George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin. That's not true. George Floyd likely, I'm not going because I'm not the coroner, but I've seen the autopsy and I've seen the reports here. He had enough fentanyl in his system. I mean, 3 times the amount that would kill you. Okay. And if you want to know how much that is, it's the tip of a pencil. And I say that all of the time. That's how much was in his system, and that's enough to kill you 3 times over. So George Floyd likely died of a fentanyl overdose. I'm going to definitively say probably died of an fentanyl overdose. And I really didn't like that Mike Johnson came out and talked about how he was going to send money to Ukraine. I mean, he seems like he's not against that, or to Israel. He seems like he's really for that. So he's the 56th speaker after 3 Republican nominees failed to win the gavel as a result of McCarthy being pushed out of the role after being elected. Mike Johnson did say in a statement that he's going to advance a comprehensive conservative policy agenda, combat harmful policies of the Biden administration, and that we're going to support our allies abroad. And then he says he wants to restore sanity to government, which we desperately are in need of it. So I like that about Mike Johnson. I also like that he is a devout Christian. Where does he stand on the issues? Well, once he proposed legislation to make it a crime to transport a minor across state lines to get an abortion without satisfying parental involvement. So, yeah, I would say you need to get parental involvement. This is common sense legislation, and it should go without saying that you need to get parental involvement if you are going to cart a minor all the way across the country to go get an abortion. Okay, so that was some good legislation. He also served as as legal counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. Alliance Defending Freedom is a Christian law firm, and what they do, they're committed to protecting religious freedom, free speech, marriage and family, parental rights, and the sanctity of life. So he worked for them, and I really like the work that Alliance Defending Freedom has done. Now, after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Johnson released the following statement. Today is a historic and joyful day. After nearly a half century, the Supreme Court has finally corrected its egregious error and returned the fateful policy decision over legalized abortion to the people and their elected representatives where it has always belonged. No real constitutional right to abortion has ever existed. Yes, point in the Constitution where it says you have the right to an abortion. It doesn't. The court invented it out of thin air. And the House Republicans will continue to stand for the sanctity of human life and hold the Biden administration accountable for any future attempt to impede policy decisions of pro-life states. So that's probably why he came out with this proposed legislation, where it makes it a crime to cart a minor around without parental consent or sufficient parental involvement to go take that minor for an abortion. So in his time as a Louisiana state legislator, he filed a bill called the Louisiana Marriage and Conscience Act, in an effort to keep the government from discriminating against people over their view of marriage. So I would imagine this would help people who, in that case where the bakers, they didn't want to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple, and they have the right to say, hey, this is my religious view of marriage, and I don't need to bake you a cake if you're gay, and if that's against my religion, I should be able to just refuse you service because that's my right. So he does fall in line with a lot of mainstream Republican views a lot of the time, but I think he's kind of populist in some way, Trump populist, as I would say. He defended Trump during the Democrat-led House impeachment hearings. He actually was a lawyer that was helping him. He also questioned the results of the 2020 election and said that we should repeal Section 230. Yes. So the left can't stand this guy. Then again, they hate every Republican speaker. They didn't like McCarthy either. Okay. But the reasons they dislike him are the reasons why I would like him. Okay. The reasons why the left dislikes him are the reasons why I would like him, why you would like him. He's pro life. He questioned the results of the election. He wants to repeal Section 230. And look, let your freak flag fly, Mike Johnson, and let your freak flag fly. If you listener, let your freak flag fly, because there is no common ground with these people. There's just none. So don't try to find common ground with these people. You can't find common ground if it's based in a lie. We're going to be back. I do want to get to Joe Biden's executive order, because he found something that's racist. Of course, artificial intelligence. He thinks that that's racist, and he made an executive order. I want to unpack that executive order. Plus, Democrats are really upset with Mike Johnson right now, actually, because, let me check my notes, make sure I've got this right, because Mike Johnson isn't rich. Yes. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for joining me. Carl Hospital offered my elderly sick mom fentanyl as a painkiller at the ER. So crazy. Yeah, actually, weird story about that. I busted up my knee on the ice. I dislocated it, and they gave me lots of fentanyl. And I did not know that's what they were giving me. I mean, I was a 18-year-old girl, and they said, we're going to give you some painkillers. And I said, okay. And they gave me like probably 3-4 doses of it. It was insane. And I mean, I was really tripping hard. I don't know how many or how much a dose was, but I mean, I got one in the ambulance on the way to the hospital and at the hospital. So I got it 3 times. So yeah, that's kind of crazy as a painkiller. That's not good. Fast forward through our worship songs to get to this interview. Yes. Uh, Agenda over reality. AI is basically profiling rules, data, decision systems, sometimes called risk management, that zero organizations can say, algorithms, decisions. Yeah, we're going to get onto all of that here coming up in just a little bit, about the AI and really what AI is going to be via this executive order made by Joe Biden. It's going to discriminate against groups of people that they deem to have privilege. They're going to embed CRT and DEI in artificial intelligence. And I'm sure you could imagine the problems that will come out of that. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back in just about 5 minutes. morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Yes, we are getting to Joe Biden. He's signed this executive order, and it deals with artificial intelligence. And he has found something else to be racist. That's AI. He thinks that AI is racist, so he's getting ahead of it, and he has signed this executive order. We're going to talk about that. Plus, Democrats are big mad because the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, let me check my notes here. Apparently they're all peeved off because he's not rich. Yes, we're gonna get to that here coming up in just a little bit. Plus, the DC mayor, finally admits her mask laws are fueling crime. Yes, so these mask laws on the books, they are fueling the crime that's going on in Washington, D.C. So we're going to get to all of that and more on the Morning Buzz. Like, love, share the podcast out with your friends. That's cities929.com. You can see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. According to the free leader of the world, Joe Biden, artificial intelligence is racist and discriminatory. Yes, so that's what he says. Despite what the Biden administration thinks, diversity and equity actually do nothing, absolutely nothing for tolerance. In fact, all it really is, diversity, equity, and inclusion, all it really is, it's a signal. It's a little signal for their little activists, their acolytes. It's that their political and ideological goals are being adhered to. It's a little signal. It's a, hey, we're listening to you. Here's DEI. Here's diversity, equity, and inclusion activists. Sleepy Joe, he signs this landmark executive order that would require AI companies to address algorithmic discrimination and ensure AI advances equity. That's what he signed. Now, President Joe Biden signed that executive order that's going to require these AI companies to address the algorithmic discrimination and ensure that AI advances equity. And really, what that means, folks, is that they want to embed CRT, critical race theory, and DEI into every aspect of artificial intelligence. What could possibly go wrong? Because it's going so well in our school systems, right? Our public indoctrination camps. What could possibly go wrong? Critical race theory is a racist ideology. DEI is racist. The only way, in other words, the only way to fix AI discrimination is to have AI discriminate. Okay, I guess two wrongs really do make a right sometimes. But basically, what we can expect from AI is that it's going to be specifically engineered to discriminate against groups with so-called privilege. Okay, so that privilege, it could be that you take supplements, that you keep yourself healthy. If you're not overweight, you are technically privileged. According to the left, they think that you have privilege. If you're white, you have privilege. If you are a male, you are privileged. And AI is going to discriminate against specific groups with so-called privilege, whatever the left deems privilege that day. But don't worry, because the new requirements are expected to make sure developers create standards that, quote, ensure AI-powered systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy. The government says it's going to be safe, secure, and trustworthy. Okay. Yes, I don't worry. These new requirements laid out in this executive order, it's going to make sure, these requirements are going to make sure that the developers of the AI create standards to ensure AI-powered systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy. DEI, and listen, I'm telling you, DEI is intentional exclusion of certain people based on race, white people specifically. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't sound safe or trustworthy to me. And according to the Biden administration, the new order this new executive order establishes standards for AI safety and security, protects Americans' privacy, advances equity and civil rights, stands up for consumers and workers, promotes innovation and competition, and it advances American leadership around the world and more. So it sounds great, doesn't it? The Department of Energy and Homeland Security will also address AI systems, threats to critical infrastructure, as well as chemical, biological, nuclear, and cybersecurity risks. This is what the Department of Energy and Homeland Security says that they're going to be. So when they say biological, does that mean that AI will be able to decide when the next pandemic is, since many unelected officials keep telling us that we're most definitely going to get another pandemic? This executive order is also said to protect all Americans, especially kids. That's what this executive order says. So I'm going to read from the executive order. It says, in accordance with the Defense Production Act, the order will require that companies developing any foundation model that possesses a serious risk to national security, national economic security, national public health, and safety must notify the federal government. So the companies have to notify the federal government when training the model. So when training their AI, when developing the AI, if it poses a risk to national security, national economic security, national public health, and must share results of all red team safety tests. So you have to share the results of your AI safety tests with the White House, with the government. The measures will ensure that AI systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy before companies make them public. So you're developing an AI system and you have to share all of your tests and results with the government. I thought, and I'm just throwing something out there, folks, I thought that you had to get a court order to have private companies share data with the government. Okay, I thought you had to, but no, I guess this executive order trumps all of those rights. So it also says that this executive order is to ensure fairness throughout the criminal justice system. So they're going to start implementing AI in the criminal justice system by developing best practices on the use of AI in sentencing, parole, probation, pretrial release and detention, risk assessment, surveillance, crime forecasting, and predictive policing and forensic analysis. So, two things that should never go together: equity and criminal justice. As we know, you can't have a just system as long as you have an equitable system. Okay, that criminal justice and equity, they don't go together. There's no equity in justice. That's the whole point of justice. Okay, so if you're bad, you get punished, and you are held for sentencing. You are held without parole. You can be held on probation. Right. The whole point is for it to not be equitable. There's law-abiding citizens and there's non-law-abiding citizens. There's people who don't follow the law. The people who don't follow the law face the consequences of that. You can't have equity and criminal justice together. So to just to sum up the entire executive order, the measures will help ensure that AI is as left as possible. That's what this is. The order is to make sure that AI is as left as possible. They're going to bake critical race theory and DEI into AI, and it's going to be as far left as possible. And according to Joe Biden, it's not science fiction, it's the real deal. Let's take a listen to Joe Biden talking about this. Here's a clip of him. Folks, by God, it's real, it's not fake. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
And AI is helping the National Weather Service predict weather events, helping the Webb telescope manage 500,000 miles of galaxies away, billions of light years away. I found it when I turned on my phone and saw that. I thought, my God, what is this? Science fiction. I'm serious. Didn't you have the same thought when you saw it? And AI is helping the National Weather Service predict weather events, helping the Webb telescope manage 500,000 miles of galaxies away, billions of light years away. I found it when I turned on my phone and saw that. I thought, my God, what is this? Science fiction. I'm serious. Didn't you have the same thought when you saw it?
So there's Joe Biden, and yes, according to Biden, this is not science fiction. This is the real deal. And all that said, all this is going to accomplish, it's going to accomplish nothing except more bureaucracy at the taxpayer's expense. Okay, more bureaucracy at the taxpayer's expense. And they're going to bake critical race theory and DEI into, and they're going to embed it into AI systems. And it's unfortunate that the executive order actually forces private companies to disclose what they're doing with their AI systems. I thought you had to have a court order with that. I mean, to get their data, to get their test results of the AI, they've got to send it up to the government. I'm like, what the? I guess the executive order trumps all of the necessary channels that you got to go through. You have to get a court order to have private companies share their data with you. But anyway, I do have to shift gears. Let's talk about it. Democrats, they're not going to admit it, but they are actually the party of billionaires. Yes. Their policies hurt middle class Americans more than they can even imagine. And you get this. Before I get it, I'm going to take a quick break. But when I come back, we're going to talk about how Mike Johnson, he's getting all kinds of backlash from the Democrats because, let me check my notes here, because he's not rich like them. And they don't like that. they're big mad because he's not rich. So I'm going to be talking about Mike Johnson here and how the Democrat Party is just the party of billionaires and millionaires, and they actually hate middle class America. So I'm going to be back next on the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. AI is racist. Now, imagine that. Yes, Ryan, AI is racist. That's what Joe Biden thinks. So that's why he's baking into the cake critical race theory and DEI. And make no mistake, what's going to wind up happening is AI is going to discriminate against groups of people who have so called privilege. That's what this executive order is all about. It's also about strong arming private companies and saying, hey, you don't have the rights to your data. You don't have the rights to your safety test data. The government has the right to that. And we want you to fork it over. We want you to hand me over all of your data because, it could risk your AI could be a risk to national security. It could be a risk to national public health. It could be a risk. So we need it and we need to comb through it. And we're going to make sure that it is also has the discriminatory properties that we want it to have, which is this critical race theory, and to make sure it discriminates against white people and people with privilege. That's men. That's people who are healthy, right? Okay. So if you have, I actually have this. It's this hilarious photograph, and what it is, it's a privilege score. And it gives you a privilege score, and there's different things that classify you as privileged. I'm looking for it here. I had it pulled up a couple of days ago, but it was so funny. I was like, are you serious right now? Here it is. Okay. So here's, if you have privilege, here's your characteristics. Okay. If you're a man, if you're white, if you're heterosexual, if you're non-transgender, if you're wealthy, if you're an adult, if you're traditionally educated, if you are society's definition of sane, so if you are a sane person, if you are society's definition of attractive, if you are society's definition of emotionally stable, if you're a young adult or middle-aged, if you're English speaking, if you're average sized, if you're white collar, if you're non-institutionalized, if you're a non-victim, if you're a Christian, you're privileged. If you're North American, if you have two heterosexual parents per your family, if you have two heterosexual parents, then you have privilege. And then if you're healthy and if you're a landowner. So those are the people with privilege. Those are the groups of people that will be discriminated against when it comes to AI. The people with less privilege. Now, this was, now you can check this out on our website. I've put it up there. It's called the Power Privilege Checklist. And this was actually given to elementary students in Blaine County, I think it was, in like Washington, D.C. But the people with less privilege are women, people of color, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, poor, child, self-educated, other than society's definition of sane, differently abled, other than society's definition of attractive, other than society's definition of emotionally stable, if you're a child or if you're an older person, so if you're a child or an elderly person, other language speaking, other sizes, blue collar, institutionalized, survivor, a survivor of a crime, or of if you're a victim, those who have beliefs other than Christianity, um, the rest of the world other than North America. So what? Um, Other family compositions, I don't know what that means. Other family compositions, less healthy, and if you're a tenant, if you're not a landlord, and if you're a tenant, then you are less privileged. So AI is going to be used to discriminate against basically everybody in America. White collar people. I was kind of shocked to hear that blue collar people were actually less privileged. Um, I would say that, there's an attack on blue collar people, attack on white collar people, blue collar people. Truly, I thought that the less privileged people would be people on welfare. Um, that's what was thinking, but yeah, they're going to discriminate against you via AI, and that's what this executive order does. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button. We're back talking about Mike Johnson. Well, this is pretty explosive stuff. Diane Benjamin, she put it out there. I love it. Unit 5 has lost 1,447 students since 2016. So she points this out. They had the highest enrollment they've ever had since, and it was in 2016, and that was 13,751 students. Now, last year's school enrollment. Now I'm waiting. We're waiting. Diane has FOIA'd for the current enrollment, and wow, if you just look at 2022, it's decreased 1,447 students at Unit 5. If classrooms are overcrowded, it has to be because Unit 5 refuses to use their resources responsibly. They have conned the taxpayers into approving this referendum. Okay, enrollment is down. Spending per child is up. I forget how much they spend on a child. I think it's like $12,000 per student at Unit 5, and I think their literacy rates are like at 30%. I haven't looked them up in a little bit, but I think only 30% of students at Unit 5 can read. I'd have to look at it's close to that. There were recent numbers that came out from Illinois Report Card, and maybe their proficiency rates have gone up a little bit. I've looked at District 87's recently. I think it was 17% of kids can read at grade level, and they spend about $15,000 per student. The spending per student obviously does not mean better outcomes, and the enrollment is down. If there's overcrowded classrooms, that's because there's no teacher growth. Okay, I've told you before that from 2000 to 2019, if you look at it from a national perspective or national statistics, it shows that 87%, that's how much district administrators grew by nationwide here in the United States. Then you look at the student growth, only 7%. Then you look at the teacher growth, only 8%. Okay, so the students aren't growing, the teachers aren't growing, but the District 87 or the district administrators are growing. And I, I mean, I don't know about you, but do you have a secretary or vice principal that had a great impact on your life? Probably not. I can't even remember the name of my vice principal. Teachers have a great impact on your life. And if they have an issue with classroom sizes, and most staff do think they have an issue with classroom sizes, according to this recent Unit 5 survey that they've got, um, only 35% of the staff at Unit 5 think, according to the survey, that they have the adequate space available for class sizes. That they want more space so that way they can have smaller class sizes. This is just, I mean, this is a lack of using your resources wisely, because we know teachers aren't growing, we know that students aren't growing. So what do you mean? Your enrollment is down. How are class sizes bigger? You must not be hiring teachers then. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're not hiring teachers. You're hiring district administrators, because the statistics show that that's gone up 87%. So, yes, Unit 5 since 2016, losing 1,447 students. And I'm sure the 2023 numbers, those aren't going to look good either. So, before I took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. He's facing some backlash from Democrats. Why? Because he doesn't have a whole lot of money. Yes. So we're going to get into that. I got to take yet another break. Also, a little bit later, we are going to be talking about the DC mayor. Muriel Bowser is her name. She's the one that refused the Capitol Police on January 6th, or she refused to give over some police for that day. But she also has forced residents and their grandmas to wear face diapers in an effort to fight off this invisible threat that may or may not have caused someone to have the sniffles. The threat was so extreme that you would have had you would have never known if you had come across it. That's why you had to mask up, just in case you came across this invisible threat, COVID-19. Simultaneously, in 2020, what did Muriel Bowser do, the DC mayor? Well, uh, they were fighting two invisible threats, COVID-19 and institutional racism. So, what did Bowser do as well as other Democrats? Well, they came up with some sort of brilliant solution back in 2020. Why not kill two birds with one stone? So, they had a law out there uh, where they were going to protect Black people from racist police as well as COVID-19 by allowing masks. And now she's finally admitting that, hey, masks are actually harming the city because masks are contributing to this rampant crime that we're seeing. The mask laws that we passed in 2020 are fueling the crime that we're seeing now in DC. So we're going to talk about it here next on the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9, live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Yes, folks. So your property taxes, it all goes towards the school districts. They spend about $15,000 per student at District 87. Then they're also spending about $12,000 per student. And you look at the proficiency rates, and a lot of these superintendents, actually, I think the Illinois superintendent, he was at like some sort of state level, and he says, yeah, well, we're getting there. Post pandemic, we're going to improve our proficiency rates. You're not really improving them by a whole lot. I'll have to look up Unit 5's proficiency rates. That's what I'll do now. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. I just recently I've looked at District 87s. I haven't looked at Unit 5s since these new numbers have come out. So in 2022, the reading rate, so the proficiency rate amidst the Unit 5 students district wide, there was only in 2022, uh, what was it, 34.6% of students could read at grade level. And then you look at 2023, 36.7% uh, of kids can read at grade level. So we're talking about a couple of different or a couple of percentage points they've boosted up. Okay, so since 2022, they've talked about, or it's only a couple of. Oh wait, hang on, I'm looking here. Okay, I want to fix that. So Unit 5 for their 2023 school year, when it comes to ELA, when it comes to reading comprehension, 2023, 36.7%. In 2022, it was 30.9%. 30.9%. That's right. So it boosted up about 6 percentage points from, pandemic. 2022 was probably more closer to the pandemic. That's probably why the reading rate was a lot less than it is now, 36%. But folks, I'm still talking 36% of the kids district wide can read at grade level. That's bad. That's abysmal, especially when you consider you're spending about $12,000 per student. That's a lot. That's a lot. And, you're growing all of this administration. I gave you those numbers from 2000 to 2019, 87%. That's how much the district administrators have grown nationwide. And then you look at student growth, it only grew by 7%. Teacher growth, it only grew by 8%. Why am I bringing this up? The enrollment is down. McLean County District Unit 5, Diane Benjamin, she pointed this out. They had their highest enrollment in 2016, and it's down by like 1,447 as of 2022. So this is just failing public indoctrination camps. Your taxpayer money, your property taxes, it goes to the school. If you want to know where your property taxes go, that goes to the school. Maybe a little bit goes to like fire, police, something like that, but not a whole lot goes to those industries. It goes to the school. So if you're wondering, my taxpayer money, it's being used on district administrator salaries. That's what it's being used on. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Democrats and how they're big mad at the speaker because Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he's not rich. So here's the thing. I love the Daily Beast because they always come out with these ridiculous headlines, but not everyone can be as rich as Nancy Pelosi. Okay, not everyone can be as rich as Nancy Pelosi. Democrats, they're not going to admit it, but they're actually the party of billionaires. Their policies destroy middle class Americans more than they could even imagine. One reason they create policies like this is because lawmakers are so out of touch with the average American that they don't care that gas is $2 higher than what it used to be. It makes no difference to most of the members of Congress because they don't even go to the gas station. Clearly, Mike Pence, right? Remember his campaign video where he doesn't even squeeze the nozzle to pump his gas. But to the average person in middle America, 50 cents a gallon more it can make the difference on whether or not they have enough money to even make it to work. Okay. So not everyone can be as rich as Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrats hate Mike Johnson because he's not rich enough. We used to teach basic reading at home before they even went to school. Modern education is a total failure. Educations and tax systems are broke. Yes. Yeah, I explained that, District 87 or district administrators, they make so much money. Even teachers really make a whole lot of money too when you think about it. So I've rambled these statistics off to you. The average teacher in America, they make $68,000 a year. That's not annualized. So when you annualize it, it probably really equates to about $80,000 a year. Now, that is significantly less than what Illinois teachers get paid, but still, they're getting paid about average when it comes to Illinois average salaries. I think they get paid around $50,000 a year, something like that. When you annualize it, you can probably say it's more like $70,000 a year or something like that. So that's a substantial amount of money. It really is when you think about it in comparison to the rest of the nation and how the rest of the nation does. Being a teacher is actually considered being white collar. Okay, so um, teachers and the district administrators make good money. The district administrators, their average salary is $102,000, something like that. It's ridiculous. That's the average. Okay, now there's people. The highest salary that I've seen in the nation, it's about $137,000 to be some sort of district administrator. Um, and I mean, uh, superintendents, they make a crap ton of money. It's a lot. Uh, and look, folks, I would have no problem with that, but we're expanding our district administrators like it's going out of style. 87% growth. And then you look at the student growth, and that's only 7%. Then you look at the teacher growth, that's only 8%. And they're sitting there and they're bitching, I'm sorry, excuse my language, about class sizes. And they're like, oh, we're all upset about class. What do you mean your class sizes are too big? This is clearly on your end because one, the enrollment is down. Two, you've expanded your district administrators by way too much. Okay. And the students aren't growing. The enrollment is down. I just told you for Unit 5, it was down from 2016 by 1,447 students. And you mean to tell me that you're having an issue with class sizes? Hire more teachers. Fire some district administrators then. So that way there's more teachers so you can have smaller class sizes. It's insanity. It's such a racket, and really what it is, they are paying these district administrators these egregious salaries. Uh, and here's how it goes. And I can tell you this is how it goes. You're promised a district administrator role in exchange for peddling Democrat talking points or Democrat narratives, Democrat political agendas, okay, via the teachers union. You're promised all of this if you are high ranking in that teachers union. Say you're a teacher and say, I'd like some more money. Because like I said, they'd make good money, but they don't make nearly as much as what they could as an administrator. Now, if this teacher, bump, bump, shoulder, shoulders, nudge, nudge, does what the teachers union tells them to do, perhaps the teachers union can fight for them to have some sort of district administrator role or something like that. And we see this as plain as day. The BEA, the Bloomington Education Association, sent out emails to folks instructing educators to use their private email addresses to write Sharon Chung to get her to divest or to get her to not support the Invest in Kids Act anymore. So the Invest in Kids Act, it's a school choice scholarship program, and they instructed the educators to campaign really against the Invest in Kids Act and use their time and use their private emails to email Sharon Chung and tell her to not extend the Invest in Kids Act. So that right there is proof that the teachers union is making and as well at least encouraging, okay, via email, Bloomington educators to go and act as Democrat campaigners. Okay, they are using taxpayer money to campaign, which is completely absurd. I mean, if you're thinking about it, I mean, I'm not directly, but we pay for those teachers. Okay, those teachers, they get paid via the public school teachers get paid via the taxpayer money. Okay, that's how it works. And I mean, because they're in that paid position now, they were instructed very specifically to use their private email as a private citizen. However, you're using the public school infrastructure teachers union to disseminate this email to Bloomington educators. You're using that infrastructure to encourage and to equip people to push the Democrat, because that is I would say it's a partisan issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue, but the Democrats definitely don't want the Invest in Kids Act to exist, because why? It attaches money to the student. Okay, they don't want that. They don't want the money to be attached to the student. They want the money to just be thrown in to this kitty, and then they can just or distribute it the way they want. And the way they've been distributing that is very clearly to district administrators and their salaries. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Democrats, they don't want to admit it, but they are actually the party of billionaires. And let me prove it to you, okay? Their policies hurt middle-class Americans more than they could ever imagine. And like I was telling you before the break, one reason they create policies like this is just because the lawmakers who create these policies, they're just out of touch with everyday Americans, average Americans, and they don't care that gas is $2 higher, because it makes no difference to most of the members of Congress, okay? Most of them don't really care about gas. They probably have never pumped gas in their life. Look no further than the Mike Pence campaign video, where he doesn't even squeeze the nozzle of the gas pump. He doesn't squeeze it because he doesn't even know how to pump gas. Okay, so make no mistake that most members of Congress, they don't care that gas is $2 higher than what it used to be. However, to the average person in middle America, 50 cents a gallon can make the difference on whether or not you have enough money to make it to work even. Okay, so that's the reality. Average Americans, 50 cents makes a difference on whether or not they'll even have enough money to get to work. Okay, so not everyone can be as rich as Nancy Pelosi, and the left doesn't understand that. So they're freaking out now because Speaker Mike Johnson is not rich enough to trigger the checking account disclosure rules for members of Congress. So members of Congress, what they're required to do is they're not required to report their assets if the total of all of their accounts is less than $5,000. Okay, so the Daily Beast, they actually came out with a report recently revealing that Johnson has not reported checking or saving accounts in his name, nor his wife or children's name, during the short time has so far served in Congress. So, the Daily Beast is furious that Johnson isn't rich enough. He's not corrupt, or both. And on top of that, he also does not trade stocks as a member of Congress, and he doesn't seem to have any kind of shady business dealings. Okay, Mike Johnson. He's not rich. He's never disclosed any of his assets because his assets haven't totaled up to that magical $5,000 where he has to report it. At least not yet. Okay, so Daily Beast came out with this and they published this. Look, I know it's hard to take in for the left, but the truth of the matter is not everyone can make millions off of sweetheart real estate deals like Nancy Pelosi and her husband are doing right now, or trading stock. Okay, so not everyone can do that. And I know that's hard for the left to take in, but I guess the truth hurts, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Shouldn't it be a good thing that this man can actually relate to the struggles that most Americans are going through? Daily Beast, they're trying to shame him really because he isn't rich, he's not corrupt, or both. That's what Daily Beast is doing. That's what the left is doing. They're shaming him because he doesn't have a accumulation of over $5,000 in all of his accounts. This story is actually a disappointing reality. It's really a disappointing reality that we all live in. It's sad that it's acceptable for politicians to get rich while in office. Okay, but there must be some sort of corruption the moment that someone takes office. And, God forbid that this guy is living paycheck to paycheck, you must be corrupt. Okay, what we should really take from all of this is that according to the left, no evidence of corruption is the evidence of corruption. Well, only for Republicans. Okay, so there's no evidence of corruption. He can actually relate to the struggles that Americans are going through, and they think that he is corrupt because there's no evidence of corruption. The story is extremely disappointing reality that we live in. It should not be acceptable for politicians to get rich while they're in office. Um, but there must be some sort of corruption the moment that someone in office is caught living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, so the left, what they're trying to say is that there must be some sort of corruption because he doesn't have a whole lot of money and he's not reporting that money. Maybe he's just living to paycheck. Okay, maybe he's not getting rich while he's in Congress. As it turns out, most Americans can relate to somebody who has, who doesn't have. Most Americans can't relate to somebody who has a $24,000 refrigerator, and I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi. Okay, we found out that she had a $24,000 refrigerator filled with Jenny's Premium Ice Cream, and I looked this up. I've never even heard of Jenny's Premium Ice Cream, but you can see in the video, remember Nancy Pelosi during the pandemic, she's got it lined with ice cream, and it's Jenny's Premium Ice Cream. For like a little thing, it costs about $10, like for 2 scoops of ice cream. Turns out most Americans just can't relate to somebody who has a $24,000 fridge and fills it with Jenny's ice cream, okay? As over 60% of Americans, listen to this, they live paycheck to paycheck, and about a third would not have the funds to cover an unexpected $400 expense. But all that said, I still fail to see where this is an issue with the speaker who has an accumulated wealth and no massive retirement plan other than, I'm sure the pension that he's going to have after he's done with Congress. If it's true that the reason the third most powerful person in the country has not reported a bank account is because he really is living to paycheck, I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. So he hasn't reported any of his accounts, his bank account, because I think that he's actually living paycheck to paycheck, which is, a majority of America. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So I don't know. The Democrats are out there saying that he's corrupt because he hasn't reported this money. But I don't know about that. I think that he's just a regular guy, and I don't see an issue with that. I think that this is a good thing that he hasn't reported the money. So several years ago, I do want to talk about this a little bit. The DC mayor, Muriel Bowser, forced all the residents and their grandmas in DC to wear a face diaper in an effort to fight off this invisible threat known as COVID-19. That, COVID-19, the thing that may or may not have caused you to have some sniffles, the threat that was so extreme that you would have you would have never known if you came across it. Okay, it's such an extreme threat, you have no idea if you come across it. And that's why you had to mask up, just in case you came across COVID-19, this invisible threat. Okay, so the DC mayor, she forced all the residents to wear mask up. Okay, so simultaneously in 2020, the society was also facing another invisible threat. COVID-19 was one, institutional racism was the other. At that time, Muriel, the mayor, Bowser, as well as other Democrats, they came up with this brilliant solution. Okay, why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone? So they actually created a law, and I had no idea this law existed, but I guess it did. According to the Washington Examiner, the DC City Council, they actually were worried about a resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. So they passed an anti-mask law over 40 years ago. Okay, so this was over 40 years ago. They passed an anti-mask law. You can't wear a mask because they were worried about the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, however, racism came back in full force in 2020. So what did the city council decide to do? They decided to repeal that law and protect Black people from racist police as well as COVID. So they implemented a law that, you weren't going to get slapped with extra charges if you wore a mask during a crime. Some states, some cities, if you wear like a ski mask or something while committing a crime, you get extra time for that because you're concealing your identity. But they repealed this anti-mask law over 40 years ago. This was made because there was actually a worry that Ku Klux Klan would begin to rise, and they didn't want people wearing masks because they were worried about the Ku Klux Klan members hurting people and being racist. So I don't know how this really makes sense. in 2020, they repealed that law, and then they said that they were going to protect Black people from racist cops as well as COVID-19 by allowing them to mask up. So, anyway, all it would take was just an itty bit of thinking, just an itty bitty bit of thinking to realize that criminals would actually exploit this law and use this to conceal their identities when committing crimes. Okay, so they're using masks to conceal their identities when committing crimes. But it seems that there wasn't much thinking going on in DC around 2020 at that time when they made this law, when they repealed that law, that standing law for 40 years. Hey, anti-mask laws don't allow Ku Klux Klan members to wear to wear masks to conceal their identity. But anyway, they repealed that law, and they wanted to protect Black people from racist cops with that law, with repealing that law. So anyway, Bowser, she finally decided to use her excuse of a brain, and now she wants to restore the anti-mask law due to the crime wave that they've been seeing in the nation's capital. So this is incredible. And I just did this bit on Tuesday where I talked about this dystopian. It was like straight out of a dystopian novel that you'd be reading. It was the CVS pharmacy in Washington, D.C., where instead of the products on the shelves, they put picture frames up of and photographs up on the shelves of the range of items they have. But you'd have to ring a bell to get a sales associate to get you what you need. That's what has been going on in Washington, D.C. Okay, so you compare this time to last year, and I've got the statistics in Washington, D.C. Homicides are up 37%, robberies are up 66%, auto thefts are up 106%, with 5,343 auto thefts year to date. And then carjackings are just as bad. Those are up 108%, with 745 carjackings year to date. So DC's 1982 anti-mask law only banned masking with the intent to break the law. So you actually had a law on the books that said, hey, if you ban masking, if you're intending to break the law and you're wearing a mask, then you're going to get slapped with some extra charges. Bowser's proposal would make wearing a mask while committing a crime an additional charge on top of any other charges. So if you intended to break the law, so if you actually committed the crime, you are going to be slapped with additional charges if you're wearing a mask. So this is kind of great legislation coming out of DC. I think that this is awesome. But this is what the mayor says. She says this legislation reflects what our community is telling us. They want appropriate accountability for those who choose to commit crimes and inflict fear in our neighborhoods. At the time when we're dealing with historically low staffing levels at the police department, we're making common sense changes and that recognize the day-to-day operational challenges our officers experience that will better support safe and effective policing. So this is a pretty cool law where she's going to slap additional charges on to criminals if they are wearing a mask while they're committing a crime. So what is exactly safe and effective policing? Because I don't think there's much policing going on. I just rambled off those statistics. Homicides are up 37%. Carjackings are up 108%. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Safe and effective policing. There's nothing going on that's safe over there right now, and it doesn't seem like there's much policing going on. Also, I don't think telling people that police are so racist to the point that Black people have to wear masks have contributed to I think that this may have contributed to the historically low staffing in police departments that you're talking about. Okay, so back in 2020, when you repealed this law and you said, yeah, we're going to let Black people wear masks when they go and commit crimes because we have to protect them against racist cops, I don't think that did you any good when it comes to the staffing the police department. Maybe it just affected it a little bit, yes. But one thing is for sure, progressives will never admit they're wrong, no matter how many times they eat their own words. Even 5-year-olds could have told you that masks embolden criminals. Okay, 5-year-olds can tell you that. Kids wear masks to go trick-or-treating, to literally disguise their identity. And somehow our lawmakers in the nation's capital, they couldn't figure that one out. It's a little too late, don't you think? Homicides are already up 37%. Carjackings are already up 108%. It's a little too late to crack down on crime. Okay, and it doesn't really matter what you do, because if you crack down on crime, since most of the crime is actually committed by juveniles in Washington D.C., they don't really get anything besides a slap on the wrist. So get this: in Washington D.C., if somebody's under 18, they cannot be held in jail beyond their 21st birthday. Subsequently, even if juvenile murderers have avoided significant jail, I mean, these murderers, juveniles who have committed murder, they actually get out of jail, and they avoid significant time in jail. Progressives are not too good at much of anything. Okay, they're just not good at anything, and it's really not all that difficult. There's one effective way to prevent crime, and that used to be all around the world, um, for some time now. I mean, we the thing that stops crime, you have to prosecute and punish people who commit crimes. Then you get less of it. It's that simple. But look, I mean, I don't think that these DC officials really have figured out that obvious fact that, hey, if you prosecute and punish people, then you're going to get less crime. Rudy Giuliani, the smashing windows and graffiti. He passed a law where he was going to prosecute smashing graffiti, or smashing windows or breaking windows and graffiti. He was going to prosecute those to the fullest extent of the law. And that actually curbed all crime: murder, homicides, carjackings, all of it. Prosecute and punish people for committing crimes, period. Okay, so when we come back, Karine JEAN-PIERRE, she's out there and she refuses to denounce anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests taking place across America, even here in Bloomington Normal, IWU. They were straight up protesting. I got to tell you about this one protester's sign next on the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. If you're watching, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and smash the like button. Yeah, but Charlottesville. That's what Karine JEAN-PIERRE says. And she refuses to denounce anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests that are happening across the country. And I'm going to unpack it here on the Morning Buzz. Also, Bud Light, the backlash continues and it drags down the company. And the revenue is just plummeting for yet another quarter. So I think that this is important because people think that the story went away. It didn't, and Bud Light is not righting the ship. The ship is sinking. Okay, so I've got the numbers from July to September that proves that your boycott worked. And I'm sorry, global CEO of Bud Light, who said in July that, oh, America's boycott, it only really affects like 1% of our global sales, and I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, well, now you should be because it is affecting the global company, the global sales. It's affecting your top line, Anheuser-Busch. So I'll be back. This is Cities 92.9. Smash the like button. I'm live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Thanks so much for joining me. Yes. So earlier in the show, we talked with John Bach. He's the executive director of Gun Save Life. And we talked about the gun safes. I couldn't believe this. I found this out in the manual for the actual gun safes that the Bloomington police issued. They marketed it as gun safes, which was really, I think, a disservice. Yes, you should take personal accountability, and smart gun owners should know that, hey, you need to keep your gun in a moisture controlled situation where your gun isn't going to rust out. But these gun safes, the manual, it says warning, gun warning. This product is not intended for firearms, other weapons, combustible materials, and medication should not be stored in this unit, in this gun safe. But we gave out 312 of those safes. And this whole thing, I mean, we did $60,000 worth of gun safes a while back. Now we're looking at $50,000 worth of money spent on guns, taxpayer money spent on guns, because what people would do, they'd bring their rusted out guns, their old guns, and they'd exchange them for cash. $200 for conventional guns, most guns, $400 for ghost guns, so-called ghost guns, and then $500 for so-called assault weapons. And somebody told me, they go, oh, well, Kat, I should have just 3D printed my ghost gun, and I should have just went there and tried to collect the $400. Yeah. So the Sunday gun buyback, it was like 2 miles long, and there was only about 36 cars that got through. The rest of the people who were there, they left with very full bladders because they were waiting for like 4 hours to get to the facility, so that way they could get the gun bought. But yeah, this was a Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Development grant that was secured by Dave Kaler. And bottom line, what I really think this is, and what it looks like to a lot of Bloomington residents, I'm just going to be honest, it looks like taxpayer funded campaigning. So now Dave Kaler, he can turn around and he can say, oh, look what I did as an Illinois senator to get guns off the street. Think about it. As a leftist, he wants to tell his constituents, these leftist constituents of his, that I got 312 safes out there, gun safes out there to properly secure firearms. And although we went through that, it didn't properly secure fire. They shouldn't have been used to secure firearms. According to the manual, it says do not. This product is not meant for firearms at all. Now, you could put a moisture packet in there. I talked to the chief about that. He said that you should have put a moisture packet in there, and that several police officers have these safes in their homes for guns, and lots of people with guns, they use these types of safes, but they put a moisture pack in there. I get that, but I mean, if you're doing a gun safe giveaway and you're promoting it as such, you should probably find gun safes, right? But yeah, this is like a taxpayer PR campaign, really, for Dave Kaler. This is why I think you have to always ask, what are these people's intention? What is Dave Kaler's intention here? Why does he want to secure that money? It's $500,000 worth. So who knows what they're going to be spending the rest of the money on? I think we've spent $110,000 of it so far. So we've got $500,000. The rest, what are we spending it on? I don't know. But I think that he's looking to say, well, I got 200 plus guns off the street through this gun buyback program, and I was the senator who gave them the money to do that. So I I take issue with the whole program in general. But if the cash is there, might as well, right? Might as well take your junk and go trade it in for a bunch of cash, right? All right, so I do want to talk a little bit about Charlottesville. Carol Jean-Pierre, she brought it up. She's refusing to denounce anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests that are taking place across America. Now, there was one protest that's particularly disturbing to see. Illinois Wesleyan, which I guess it's supposed to be a Christian college. This is not very Christian. If you talk to most Christians, most of them are Zionists. They believe that Israel should not only have the right to defend itself, but it exists. Okay, these people protesting at Illinois Wesleyan, they held up signs, and one woman, she has a sign that says, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That means the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. I'm pretty sure that's the river she's talking about. Hopefully, it's not the Euphrates, because that's a lot of land for Palestine, for the Palestinian territories to expand. Like I said, there is no country called Palestine. Palestinian is actually a derivative of the word Philistine, and Philistine, the meaning of that word is invader. So this is a Hebrew term given to these Palestinian people, and quite literally it means invader. So their territories, they're Palestinian territories, and if you go to these places, they're crapple. It's awful. It's just terrible. It's like San Francisco on steroids. The people are not happy to be living in these Palestinian territories anyway. So these Illinois Wesleyan protesters, they're chanting things like, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That quite literally means and implies that from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, that's pretty much all of Israel. That's all of Israel. They want to see that eradicated. That's anti-Semitic, and shame on Illinois Wesleyan for allowing that on their campus. I just don't think that that's right. But Carol Jean-Pierre, she refuses to denounce these protests that are taking place across America, specifically the one I just talked about here at IWU. Progressives have launched this pro-Hamas, these college students, progressives, I repeat myself, they've launched these pro-Hamas anti-Jew rallies across America. Jewish college students, in some cases, they've had to barricade themselves in libraries, and they've been told not to eat in kosher dining halls because it's unsafe. Jewish Jewish college students were also told to stay home last weekend in New York City because their government couldn't guarantee their safety. So Carolyn Jean-Pierre doesn't think that the president of the United States right now, Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, she says, man, he doesn't have to talk about it. He doesn't have to be vocal about it because he was vocal about Charlottesville in 2017. Now, we shouldn't be surprised. This is the same White House. Remember, Carolyn Jean-Pierre speaks for the entire White House when she's the spokesman. This is the same White House who claimed that there wasn't as much anti-Semitism and that we should be on the lookout for Islamophobia. So when you look at the numbers, I've told you before, I'm a receipts gal. Look at the numbers, the FBI statistics. When you look at the hate crime instances, over half of them are anti-Semitic or are against Jewish people, these crimes. 9% of them are Islam, are against Islamic people. Okay, it's all sad, and I hate all of it. It's terrible, right? You shouldn't. I mean, this is awful, but those are the numbers. So this is the same White House, look, folks, that said that we didn't need to worry about anti-Semitism and we should be on the lookout for Islamophobia. This is the same White House that was quick to call every single American who disagrees with them on policy. They called us MAGA extremists. They called us extremists. This is the same White House who calls us extremists if we disagree on policies that they're implementing, okay? So when Ducey asked President Joe Biden, or well, the White House, Carolyn Jean-Pierre, so when he asked, does President Joe Biden think anti-Israel protests in the country, these protesters, are they extremists? You would think that Joe Biden would say, yeah, they're extremists. But this response is going to shock you, even by my low White House standards. I mean, I have pretty low White House standards for the White House, especially Carolyn Jean-Pierre, because I know she's just a diversity hire and she's not really like she's only there because she's lesbian and gay and black. Like, she's only a diversity hire. That's it. She's not. Uh, she doesn't have the credentials. She doesn't have the smarts. Um, Listen to what she says, and you're going to see what I mean. Here we go.
Does President Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there's no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be very clear about that. Remember, what the president decided when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017, when he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. He's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
But you see what she's doing there. She's not calling attention to the specific cases of anti-Semitism that we're seeing on college campuses and at these pro-Hamas rallies across the nation. She's not calling them extremists. Okay, that's what his question was. Does Joe Biden think that these anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists? And I mean, that was his question. She didn't answer it. Okay, she didn't call them extremists. She didn't condemn those people specifically. She just condemned anti-Semitism in a broad general sense. Now, then she, of course, had the cojones to bring up Charlottesville, which is hilarious, which was in 2017. And she says, oh, because President Joe Biden spoke out and was very vocal in 2017 about Charlottesville, he doesn't have to speak out against the anti-Semitism on college campuses now, because he's been pretty clear about the error. He's been really clear about that as it pertained to Charlottesville. So what was Charlottesville? I'm not going to give you a whole recap on it, but it was a fake news hoax, really. Because what they tried to say was that Donald Trump was anti-Semitic, or that he was a white nationalist or a neo-Nazi, because he said that there were very fine people on both sides of this protest. There were counter protesters and there was protesters. They were protesting. You were either for the statue being removed or you were against the statue being removed. And I'm going to share with you from PragerU. They debunked this in just a couple of seconds. So this is really important when talking about Charlottesville. This was a fake news hoax. And I'm going to share it here with you on the Morning Buzz. Here we go.
Equivalency between neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and their counter-protesters after remarks he made during a press conference in 2017 following a tragic protest in Charlottesville. But did that really happen? Or is it just a glaring example of media spin? Here's the line that the media has cited for years.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
It certainly sounds bad when that's all you know about the president's remarks. But the press conference transcript tells a completely different story. The media never reports that the president immediately clarified his statement.
And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists.
But here's the real question. Why did he need to clarify at all? President Trump said several times prior to the oft-reported statement that he condemned neo-Nazis, white supremacists, as well as the violent alt-left protesters. When he said that there were good people on both sides, he clearly meant those who were for the removal of the statue and those who were against it, not those like the neo-Nazis and alt-left who came to commit violence.
Yes. So that's a debunking of Charlottesville, and I thought that was important. And look, what's been happening across America is multiple Charlottesvilles every single day, okay, in these progressive cities, on these progressive college campuses. And what is going on is these progressive organizations get people to attend these rallies and not rallies, violent protests. Okay, I told you about these Jewish students who were barricaded in this library on a college campus. They were barricaded inside. They couldn't get out because they were going to be possibly killed. They're lucky they made it out with their lives, and then they had to quit school because the school can't ensure their safety. And I find it interesting that Joe Biden is super concerned about extremism in America when it comes to people going to school board meetings, when people yell and cheer for some guy named Brandon when the presidential motorcade drives by. But I wish he would just denounce extremism when there's actual extremism going on, right? Committed by his base and committed by these progressive organizations that are organizing these rallies. So, like I said, Caroline Jean-Pierre, she's not denouncing it. She's not. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, Bud Light, they're suffering the backlash. It continues to drag down this company as revenue just plummets for another quarter. And I've got those numbers here on the Morning Buzz. Hello, folks. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. We will be back. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. We're going to be back in just about 5 minutes. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to be right back in it, the thick of it. Bud Light, the backlash is continuing. The story didn't go away. It continues to drag down this company at a global level. Okay, the revenues are plummeting for yet another quarter. And I love it because back in July, we had the global CEO. He was like, "Yeah, I don't really care that America is boycotting Bud Light because it's really only like 1% of our global sales volume." And like that just shows what little he cares about middle America. Okay. Let alone, I mean, I think more so than aligning themselves with that controversial performer, TikToker Dylan Mulvaney. But we're going to get into it here on the Buzz, Cities 92.9. Let's get into it here on Cities 92.9. Bud Light. They're so desperate. They actually gave $100 million to the UFC to try to help fix their image, Bud Light. So they're facing all kinds of backlash still. Still, this has been a long time. Now, there's people who have assumed that Bud Light has righted the ship, but no. That ship is continuing to sink, and it's going to sink all the way down to the bottom of the sea. Okay, Bud Light. They were so desperate, they spent $100 million for the UFC to repair their image. And now we've got numbers. Now we know why the company was so desperate, okay, and why they pulled that little stunt with the UFC. It's because Anheuser-Busch, the parent company of Bud Light, their top line is now being affected by American beer drinkers going somewhere else. Okay, so the numbers are out for July through September of this year. And now at the beginning of July, before these numbers, we had the global CEO, Anheuser-Busch's global CEO. He said that I'm not too concerned with the boycott in America because really it just accounts for like 1% of our global sales volume. And I really don't care about America. And that should tell you all you really need to know about how little they give a hoot about middle America, more so than aligning themselves with that controversial TikTok performer Dylan Mulvaney. Okay, normalize the bulge, where he was singing about the bulge in his pants. Yes, this is Dylan Mulvaney. He pretends to be a little girl, and he's a grown man. That Dylan Mulvaney. Okay, I think that the global CEO coming out and saying, "I really don't care because it really doesn't, affect my top line. It doesn't really affect the global sales volume so much." If America boycotts, he's like, "Yeah, we can do it without America." So that should show you how little they give a darn about you. They don't care about you, and I think that shows it more than even giving Dylan Mulvaney that ambassadorship of Bud Light. Anyway, 3 months later, after the global CEO comes out and says, it really only affects about 1% of our company's global sales, the America's boycott. Revenue in the United States for the July through September period has tumbled 13.5%. Anheuser-Busch noted that the sales to retailers were down primarily due to the volume decline of Bud Light. So it's because people are boycotting Bud Light. That's why their revenues are down. The US dollar sales of Bud Light, they were down 29% for the month of October this year. This same period of time, it was like 4 weeks in October of 2023, it's down 29%. You look at this time last year, it was only down 19%. Okay, so this whole boycott started because we had this marketing executive, okay, Alyssa. She has this $8 million house, Upper West Side home. And I mean, it's this huge house. She hates the fan base of the product. She hates middle America who used to drink Bud Light. She hated that she was marketing to you and went to a San Francisco influencer marketing firm where she found Dylan Mulvaney, who also hates the fan base, by the way. The San Francisco marketing firm hates you too. She hates you. She wants to change who enjoys the Bud Light product. Okay, that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to change who enjoys the product. That's not how you do it in marketing. But at no point during this entire journey was anybody who actually drinks Bud Light involved. Or, I mean, I don't think anybody who knows anyone who drinks Bud Light was involved. Okay, so they did not consult you about this marketing decision to hire on Dylan Mulvaney as the ambassador of the product. Now, Anheuser-Busch wanted to get their hands on the sweet ESG money, ESG cash, which demands that uh, they affirm every woke progressive worldview and political agenda. That's what ESG is all about. It's really the government, big banks, i.e., the government, I repeat myself, demanding that companies bend the knee to these woke progressive worldviews. And now that Bud Light's decline is affecting the company globally, and it is now. So I think it's hilarious that the global CEO, back in July, he was like, I'm not too worried about the American boycott because it doesn't really account for our overall sales. It doesn't put a dent in it. Now it is. Now the ones, okay, who are still customers, you need to start working on repairing this relationship. And I don't think that they're going to be able to do it, because I think everybody realized that, if they were going to drink some cheap beer from a company that hates them, they could switch to a different beer company that was smart enough to not say it out loud. Okay, so now people have switched to different beer companies that don't say it out loud, that they don't say that they hate you out loud. Because that's quite literally what they did. They quite literally out loud said, I don't really care about America. That's what this global CEO said. But Bud Light is so desperate to win people back. They've actually become the official beer of the Buffalo Bills, which I think was a stupid move for the Buffalo Bills and for Bud Light. But they also gave $100 million, like I said, to the UFC. So that way fighters like Sean Strickland, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of UFC. I have a lot of buddies who are friends or are, fans of the UFC and of Sean Strickland. I think Sean Strickland is funny. I just don't watch fighting. Um, he's a middleweight champion in the UFC, but they think that they can fix this if we get Sean Strickland chugging a Bud Light in the octagon. We're going to see if that works. That's what Bud Light has done. So, yeah, it really did affect your global sales, didn't it, there, pal, global CEO? All right, I do want to talk about Mike Johnson coming up in just a little bit. You're listening to Cities 92.9. I don't know. I'd have to click into the link, but I got the raw numbers here from PAL from July to September. Their sales are down. It plummeted 13.5% from July to September. Okay, so just in October, if you compare their sales to the last year, the prior year in October, they took out 4 weeks in October. In that same time period from last year in October of 2022, their sales were down 29%. Okay. And, or that same time last year, it was down 19%. So it's like 10% more than they were last year in just that 4 month period or 4 week period in the month of October. Now, if you look at July through September, their overall sales are down and they've plummeted 13.5%. That's a lot. And it's affecting them. Um, just not in middle America. Yeah, that's exactly what the global CEO said back in July. Um, Now it's affecting their global sales. I told you from July to September, their quarter for Bud Light globally, their sales are down 13.5% just because middle America is boycotting that beer. So when he's lying, he's saying that, it only affects 1% of our global sales. I'm not too worried about it. The global CEO, he was wrong when he predicted that it was only going to affect like 1% of their sales back in July. We have the numbers from July to September now. And from July to September, it says that their sales are down globally 13.5%, which is a big deal. And that does affect the company globally. Look, and the proof is in the pudding, okay? Bud Light's not doing fine. They just signed on a $100 million PR campaign that they're hoping will work with the UFC. Okay, they just made or they spent money to have the Buffalo Bills be their like spokesperson for the beer. Wow, the show just it ends on me so fast. I just am so shocked that the show goes by so fast. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. You can catch it tomorrow morning. If you missed any of the show, you can find the archived video on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to my channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Up next after me, it's Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, and top of the hour, Fox News.